It was one of those foggy London mornings when the streets were just beginning to wake. The soft light of dawn seeped through the curtains of 221B Baker Street, casting a pale glow over the cluttered room where Sherlock Holmes sat in his favorite armchair, deep in thought. Beside him, Dr. John Watson glanced over the morning paper, though his attention was only half committed, always ready to engage in conversation should his brilliant friend speak. Little did they know, the events of that day would unravel one of the most chilling and bizarre cases in their long career. The serenity of the morning was abruptly interrupted by the sound of hurried footsteps on the stairs. A moment later, a woman burst through the door, pale, trembling, and visibly shaken. Her face, though marked by stress and sleepless nights, held the traces of youth and grace. Her eyes darted around the room in panic, searching for help as she clutched her worn shawl tightly around her. Holmes' sharp eyes took in every detail of her appearance, the muddied hem of her dress, the slight tear in her glove, and the anxious energy that radiated from her like a cold mist. "Pray, be seated," Holmes said gently, his voice calm and inviting. "You are in safe hands now. This is Dr. Watson, my trusted colleague. Please, tell us what troubles you so." The young woman introduced herself as Helen Stoner. Her voice quivered as she began recounting the dreadful circumstances that had driven her to seek Holmes' help. With each word, the tension in the room thickened. Helen spoke of her family's once grand estate, Stoke Moran, now crumbling and haunted by tragedy. She described her stepfather, Dr. Grimesby Roylott, a man of immense strength and temper, whose reputation for violence struck fear into the hearts of those who crossed his path. But the terror Helen felt was not only from his brutish nature. It was from the dark mystery surrounding her sister's death. 2 years earlier, Helen's twin sister, Julia, had died under inexplicable circumstances, her final moments marked by horror and confusion. Just before her death, Julia confided in Helen that she had been hearing strange whistling sounds at night, sounds that filled her with dread. On the night she died, Julia's screams pierced the silence of the manor. Helen rushed to her sister's side only to find her collapsed, clutching her throat as though struggling to breathe. With her last breath, Julia uttered a phrase that chilled Helen to the bone. It was the Speckled band. Since then, the shadow of that night had never left Helen. And now, as her own wedding approached, she too began hearing the same eerie whistle in the dead of night. With repairs forcing her to sleep in the very room where Julia died, Helen feared that she would share her sister's fate. Desperate and without hope, she turned to Holmes as her last resort. Holmes listened with rapt attention, his mind already at work unraveling the mystery hidden within Helen's words. The mention of the Speckled band intrigued him most of all. What could it signify? A pattern? A piece of clothing? Or something more sinister? "Fear not, Miss Stoner," Holmes reassured her with a quiet confidence. "We shall accompany you to Stoke Moran this very day and get to the bottom of this matter." With that, the case was set in motion, and the great detective's mind was fully engaged in what would prove to be one of his most harrowing adventures.